Hello, my name is Abigail Proffit, and this is Book Bannings in Schools. Before I begin, a content warning. My presentation touches on different forms of oppression. Some people may be sensitive to some of these topics. Remember to please be kind and respectful. Surviving centuries-long quagmires of flames and destruction, books have been humanity's way of documenting information about the world. However, time and time again, certain groups of individuals attempt to impinge upon what people, especially students, can read. Now let's take a look at previous subjects to book banning with a poll. As I read the title of the book, raise your hand if you have ever read it. Brave New World, The Hate You Give, The Catcher in the Rye, 1984, Animal Farm, The Book Thief, To Kill a Mockingbird. Or even you maybe read Fahrenheit 451 or The Handmaid's Tale. Hopefully, as you look around, you'll see these books are very common. But these books in particular have seen a vast amount of challenges throughout the years, including many, many more books. Banning books is not a new concept. More recently, in the 21st century, the United States has seen an alarming increase of book banning in schools. Oftentimes, these challenges come from conservative Christian nationalists who give much obloquy to books at school board meetings or online for containing topics they deem too inappropriate. Topics would include critical race theory, LGBTQ+ issues, or detail the darker parts of history. They fret about the perceived indoctrination of quote-unquote woke ideas in their children, but see no issue with teaching far more harmful ideas present in religious teachings. To get a grasp on the severity of this issue, allow me to ask you a question. About how many books were challenged during the 2021-2022 school year? Is it A, less than 700, B, less than 1,600, C, about 1,000, or D, less than 250? Talk with your table group. If you and your table group guessed B, more than 1,600, you would be correct. The issue of book banning is huge, and recent examples bring to light how many groups are harmed through systematic oppression, tracing back centuries. As we saw with the previous poll that I ran at the beginning of my presentation, what is unfortunately ironic about this situation is that the very books being banned often discuss the historical oppression, issues, and prejudices marginalized communities face, leaving a large portion of students who are deeply affected by these issues being unrepresented. The issue of book banning goes far beyond censoring so-called harmful topics. It extends to the continued systematic oppression of those most affected by white supremacy, homophobia, misogyny, and cultural intolerance. It is becoming increasingly patent that protecting children is the least of conservatives' concerns. In reality, people's First Amendment rights are being impinged upon, and students are not receiving a diverse education. Books deemed too controversial are banned as a great deal of conservatives rationate that they could solve the quote-unquote problem by banning the literature and avoiding the topic altogether. By feigning their oppression as protection, those in support of book banning are protecting nobody, but rather they are harming the rights of all citizens. These bans often make students feel isolated or othered in the classroom. Now let me direct your attention to this TED Talk about students' experiences with book bans.
I wanted to emphasize the importance of diversity education because the lack that I saw in my 12 years of schooling. I rehashed over deeply buried memories, all for the hopes that a young child of color wouldn't look at themselves as an outsider. At that meeting, all I could think was enough was enough. After years of attempted assimilation and living for the convenience of others, I finally wanted to take some authority over my life and what affected it.
Currently, the education that most students are receiving leaves out a lot of people in their experiences. These outcomes are restricting educators and students' fundamental rights to freedom of speech, and if these bans are allowed to continue, then the struggles of oppressed communities will continue to be worsened and erased. Hi there, I'm here with your public service announcement that while we as students hold a very powerful voice in this discussion, sometimes a little bit more is needed to help out the cause. Simple actions include attending school board meetings where book challenges and banning is being discussed, and being prepared to speak up for our First Amendment rights and our right to read. Knowing one's rights as a U.S. citizen and exercising them is a simple yet fundamental strategy to protect those rights and the continuation of our democracy. Until next time. For big changes to take place, big actions need to be taken. In the past, the Supreme Court determined that restricting the availability of a book based on its content violated students' First Amendment rights. However, recently they have yet to step in on the major infringements with the barrage of book banning in schools. Petitioning or writing letters to lawmakers are all ways to put an end to book banning. By a quick show of hands, who knows who their state and district representatives are and how to get in contact with them? If not, here's how to find them and to contact them so we can advocate for our rights. Today's students are tomorrow's leaders, and in order to not repeat the past mistakes, students must have access to books that reveal different perspectives, experiences, and teach valuable lessons in empathy and diversity. I'm now going to leave you with a clip from a teacher.
We must remember that the purpose of public education is not to teach only what parents want their children to be taught. It is to teach them what society needs them to be taught.
So my final thoughts on this topic is, obviously I have very strong opinions on this topic, but to keep it brief, banning books erases progress and paves the way for oppression. That's why I think it's so important to discuss this issue and to take action to solve it before it snowballs into people losing their rights or autonomy. Thank you for listening.